Today's guest is a man who's lived and breathed martial arts at every level. Born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, Plinio Cruz is a former Cage Fury heavyweight champion, Bellator and M1 global veteran, and a black belt in BJJ and judo. But his story doesn't stop in the cage. As a coach, he's shaping the next generation of fighters and has played a key role in Alex Pereira's rise, even awarding him his BJJ black belt after UFC 300. From being a fighter to becoming one of the most respected coaches in the game, Plinio Cruz's journey is a masterclass in evolving with the sport. So welcome to the show, Plinio. What's going on?
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show today right here in Miami. So I got to ask you, since we're in Miami and we're such a beautifully culturally sound place, you come from Sao Paulo, Brazil. So what was life like for young Plinio?
So growing up in Sao Paulo, it seemed like it was in a different world, right? I've been in America for 16 years. I stayed my first 22 years of age over there. Different, right? Rough, you know what I mean? No too much perspective of where to go, where to not go. Back then, the sport was still the days that certain states in America was illegal. So it was rough, but it was good.
Was your goal when you were living in Brazil, you said for 22 years, so the first 22 years of your life, were you planning on going into MMA and competing in combat sports, or did you have other goals?
No, 100%. Actually, I grew up training. I've been training judo since I was 3 years old.
Really? So you didn't start with the jiu-jitsu?
No, I actually started a little bit with judo. Like every kid go in Brazil, they do judo, some do soccer. I did for a few years, then I stopped. Then when I was 12, I started BJJ. And from there, a couple of years later, I started doing striking. Then I fought Pro MMA over there. Did my first two pro matches actually in Brazil, and I moved to America to fight and to teach.
So you said that a lot of other kids, I mean, obviously in Brazil, there's a massive soccer culture. Was there something that you just found more interesting about fighting compared to soccer? Or do you still like soccer?
No, I still like soccer. I don't love soccer. I love fighting. That's why I transitioned to that. Because when you rely on a team sport, there's a lot of things that go around. If you succeed, you depend on the people. If you fail, you depend on the people. MMA is as raw as it gets. Fight is as raw as it gets. So if I succeed, it's my achievement. But if I fail, nobody gets hurt because of my own mistakes.
Definitely. And I think that when you talk about MMA, right, and you're a coach, how much of it do you think is a team sport? Because you have to have, to some level, you have to have good coaching and instructions on how you should be performing, what improvements you have to make between fights. How much of a team sport do you think it is versus the very lonely aspects of MMA, like when you're cutting weight by yourself, or when you're in those dark spaces, or at the start of someone's career when you're by yourself, you don't have any coaches. So how much of a team sport do you think it gets at the high level professionally?
I think 100% is a team sport, besides the fact of their own dedication, self-dedication from the fighters, because it all comes down to the environment, to the training, to the vibes, to the coaching that you have. So I think all plays together. My guys, you say about cutting weight, they don't cut weight alone. We're right there. We're on the trenches with the fighters. Until the point of give them a kiss, lock the cage, and we just watch, but our spirit's in the cage with them too, so.
I mean, it's also, I would imagine, what's it like to watch your fighter fight? It must be, even though you probably prepare them extremely hard, you can't be controlling them like a video game. You can't press buttons to make them do things. So what is that feeling like when you're shouting out to your fighter? What is that like when you're watching a fight for them?
Well, it's much worse than when I used to fight, right? Because at least on the fight, I try to have control of my acts, but I don't have. And you create
you don't have any
fighter,
control,
you know what I mean? So it's not that fun being on the corner over there.
So let's go back to when you moved from the Brazil to the United States. What was the hardest part of starting over in New Jersey?
Well, the hardest part was a fun adaptation. Well, I had to learn the language. I landed JFK with $200 in my pocket, and I had to figure it out, right? Wow. New language, new stuff. I'm a self-made man. But at the same time, martial arts gave me a very strong foundation on how to be a man, right? Like respect, discipline, and the hard work ethic.
Did you ever, when you were struggling financially, did you take any other jobs that weren't related to MMA, like fighting or coaching?
100%. I used to do security. I used to bounce on clubs on weekends, like all kinds of stuff.
Do you have any fun bouncer stories you want to share with us?
A bunch of them, but I think I'm going to build a book at the end. You'll take another podcast for that. But definitely, like, had to work. Like, most of the fighters today's days, too, you know what I mean? These kids doesn't go from zero to a super contract, right? So they got to work. And then I was teaching, too.
What were you teaching?
I was teaching jiu-jitsu, fighting in general.
Oh,
right?
fighting.
Yes. My coach, like, one good thing that he left has a legacy in me is that he showed me how to be able to fight and to teach. And I like the teaching aspect because when you are competing, and if you have to teach a little bit, it makes you look a little bit different in the game, because a fighter that sometimes doesn't have to pass on the knowledge, he can just oversee certain things. But now while you're teaching, you have to really try to break down the techniques and understand the techniques And that translates for your own self aspect of fighting.
Well, that's why they say the best way to learn is to teach someone something.
100%.
Right? Because it's like what you said, when you're going over a drill with a fighter and you're actually breaking everything down, for when you're implementing it yourself in your own fighting experience, it's going to be much more fluid and solid when you're doing it, right?
100%.
So you've been doing judo since you were 3 and jiu-jitsu since you were 12. Which one do you think you're better at?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for sure.
Even though you started it 9 years later?
Yes, because I stopped a little bit and I wasn't really too focused on judo until after BJJ. Because until I was like a blue belt thing, so I was not really doing takedowns and stuff. And I restart training judo because of that, so I could be more successful in BJJ with my takedowns. And then I became black belt on both later.
So when you were in your fighting career, now you're in the United States, you mentioned that in some states, MMA was illegal, the sport didn't exist. Was there ever a moment for you where you felt like quitting or you didn't want to keep fighting?
No, many times you feel like quitting because, the path for success is not like this, up, low, down. But gradually go over there. It's all about determination. You got to believe in yourself. I believed in myself. I believed that later on the road things would get better. And then I just kept grinding. And that goes for life. You know what I mean? Sometimes you do good, you wake up on a good day, there's a bad day. But I think the best treasure of life is not the treasure, is the journey that takes you to the treasure. Because the ups and downs, what shapes who you are today. And I'm thankful for those times because that shaped me on who I am today to be able to pass on. Because if I just had success, how can I pass on when my fighters are struggling?
So I was actually going to ask you this a little bit later, but the way you just described the juxtaposition of happiness versus sadness, and when you're fighting, but sometimes that means loss happens too. So I'm a big believer, and I have a quote, which is that winners lose more than losers do. And sometimes it is important to suffer some form of loss. It could be in an actual fight, or it could be in a different career, whatever it is. You get fired from your job. It's important to sometimes have some of these losses so you can figure out how you can grow and become better. So then I'm going to ask you, do you believe that's true? And what has been the toughest fight of your life? It doesn't have to be necessarily an actual fight.
100%. A sword to be sharp, you got to be hit by the hammer, you stay on the fire for a little bit, and then you're sharp. Life is like that too. And like I said, I believe the ups and downs that shapes who you are. I don't believe on nobody hard that had a soft story. So I had many losses in my life. It's hard to name one, but I think, like I say, so many. But like you mentioned, for you to be a winner, you got to lose a lot. I'm going to use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for an example because you compete almost every weekend. The most successful guys, they probably lost a lot, So then you're going to use that as experience, go little by little building who you are at the end.
I mean, even if you think about, I did it for a little bit, the experience of being a white belt, you're just getting smoked all the time by white belts who are maybe even 6 months ahead of you in training, right? You just get smoked by them. And if you roll with like a blue belt, you're out in a second, and then God forbid you're rolling with someone who's much higher. Obviously, they're a little bit more controlled. And it really shows that to get better, you have to be going against people that sometimes are better than you, or you have some of these experiences where you lose, and there's so much to learn from that.
100%. I actually say, people say that the black belt is the hardest belt to achieve. Yes, but at the same time, it's not. The hardest one is the white belt, because it takes you from being the couch to make a decision to go to a place. You walk in the place, it's going to have a bunch of killers. You're going to do your first class. It's going to be fun. But when you start getting into it, you're going to get your ass kicked a lot.
Oh, by a ton of people.
So it's discouraging. And in competitions, until you reach certain level, MMA, anything, you lose a lot. You get hurt inspiring. So until you start to build the game, start believing in yourself more, can be discouraging, then takes a certain type of individual to grind through that and then start rising.
How would you recommend for people that struggle fighting through that adversity? They go the first day, it's fun, and then they're like, second day, they don't want to go because either they're feeling lazy, or they're like, oh, I got smoked yesterday, so I might as well not bother going. What is your advice to those people, and how do you push forward even when you're losing?
Well, it's about commitment, discipline. Motivation don't take you nowhere. What takes you there is the discipline and the commitment. You got to commit and say, I'm going to do this for 6 months, for an example. And then little by little, going to start seeing a change on yourself, a change on your environment, a change on your day, and you go from there.
So I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk more about your fighting career. So you were a Cage Fury heavyweight champion. When you won that title, what did it mean to you?
It means a lot because I was already fighting for a while. I fought lower weight class before. I fought for Bellator. I fought in Russia for M1 Global. I fought many global organizations. And then I had a sprained ACL. I stopped fighting for 2 years, and I was actually just coaching. I was coaching this heavyweight that was champion there too, fought in the UFC after that. And then I was just like, I've been doing good inspiring these guys. I'm going to start fighting again. And then I just went to heavyweights. 2 fights later, I got the belts, and then my career kicked in again, So it meant a lot to me. It was good for me back then.
I want to rewind. So you said you were out for 2 years with a sprained ACL. How did you fight through that injury, and what was the recovery process like?
Well, I had to take some time. The doctor said, look, this is worse than if I had a tear because, it takes longer to recover. So on those times, I just focus on fully coach. I say, you know what, I'm not going to be fighting no more. I'm going to be just coaching. So I just focused fully on that, and it was hard, but little by little, I was able to grapple, able to train again, and then I just came back.
So then eventually you got back to fighting again, and then you went back to coaching. You made a full shift. I believe it was 2019. So what was the biggest factor in you going back to coaching?
The biggest factor is because when I started training Alex Pereira, which is almost 10 years ago.
It was 10 years ago?
Yeah, because I coached him through Glory too. 9 world titles in there. And he started doing really good, and I saw there was too much of a commitment. It was going to be selfish for me to be focusing on myself while I have all these guys needing my help. And I have a saying in my gym when I'm not around, when the father's not around, the older brother got to take care of the house. So I feel that I had to take care of the house then and help these guys, and it paid off.
I think it's really selfless that there became a point for you where the success of your fighters became more important than even your own success and focusing on your fights. And the decision that you made to ultimately become a full-time coach, I think it's a really powerful one. So let's go on to the next thing. So you just talked about how you started working with Alex Pereira. When you saw him 10 years ago, first of all, how did you meet him? Where did you meet him? What's the story behind that? And did you see the potential in him from then?
So Alex used to show up with my first coach's gym in São Paulo, where I grew up. And I used to go there to visit. And my coach would say, I have this guy here. He's really good. He was actually already at Glory on his beginnings. 2016, I think it was. And then we met, we clicked. We have the same type of ideas. And then one day he said, bro, one time I'm going to come to fight in the United States. I wanted to be on my corner. He came for his first title defense at Glory. I stayed on his corner, and we clicked, and then I started working with him since. But since the beginning, I could see a big potential in this guy. He was just amazing.
And when you talk about amazing, for someone like Alex, who, he obviously has his trademark left hook, how much of it do you think is his talent, and how much of it do you think is his amazing work ethic?
Well, a lot of it, most of it is his work ethic, because he have good genetics. He's a big guy, yes, but the arms doesn't move itself, right? So he works really hard. And I think the most important thing, he's fighting IQ. He's super intelligent. I told them many times, I'm going to say it again. Coaching Alex is not really coaching. It's more me able to flow on his thoughts. There are things that he used to show me back then that would take me 3-4 years to click and understand. Because I say that men with vision sometimes are not understood on their time. Isaac Newton, Da Vinci. Centuries later, we understand them. Pereira was something like that. Now I really clicked, and I really understand what he means about many things, and the level of coaching is getting higher even for my students. But I think he had a vision that was beyond his time.
Really? So you think that the biggest factor wasn't even sometimes it was his intelligence and fight IQ as a fighter?
Well, I think everything combined, because he also works hard. For example, the pandemic came, many gyms closed, guys had excuse to stay home. During the pandemic, he didn't miss training one day, bro. Gyms were closed. He was running. He was doing something. He was defending his Glory belt.
So during COVID, everyone was locked up in their house scrolling on TikTok.
He never missed one day of training.
That's insane. Well, that's why he's such a successful fighter in Glory and in the UFC. So you talk about your coaching Alex 10 years ago, but you also said, and you've been doing you've had your gym Cruz MMA for I think the past 6 years. Well,
I opened Cruz MMA in 2013. I already had Cruz
MMA. So it's been even longer.
When I was actually heavyweight champ, I was coaching and fighting.
So you were a full-time fighter and coach.
Yes. But that was actually helping me a lot, because I was able to understand more of the techniques and because I was sharing them with people.
In that period of time, or maybe more recently, is there anyone else you're coaching that we should keep our eyes on?
Well, now I have a guy that you guys should keep your eyes on. This Japanese guy that I'm training. He fights at Rising in Japan. His name's King Edopolo. He's 24 years old. He's 6'8". He's 3-0 as a pro.
24, 6'8". He's a big guy.
He's been training for only 2 years. I'm actually officially now his coach. I've been coaching for his next fights and on. So somebody that guys definitely should keep an eye on.
That's very interesting. So what are your next steps as a coach? Do you want to keep focusing on Cruz MMA? How much of your time is focused on Cruz MMA versus some of your specific athletes like Alex? Or because it must be pretty hard to split your time between, you're traveling for a world title fight versus you're at home and you're with the kids or whoever's in your gym who's training there. How do you split your time?
Well, it's hard, but it's necessary, because I tell my students all the time, it takes a village to raise a child, right? I believe in building a good environment in the neighborhood so kids have a good example everywhere that they go, so it can shape them as men. Alex is the final result of the village. but there's a lot of young kids now that I gotta help and inspire. So I want to keep serving my community. Martial arts at first is about service. The samurai was the servants of the shogun, or their community. They were the guardians, right? We are the custodians of of something that was lost, something that is ancient, but it helps to shape man. Society is being changed a lot today's days, and I feel that in my gym, in my work ethic, I'm still able to shape men with dignity, people with dignity, respect, discipline, those old school ancient values that can take you anywhere that you want in life. Whether you want to be a UFC champion, whether you want to be a father, whether you want to be a businessman, those are just roles. But the main thing is you make people with character to be able to serve the community. Like Alex do, he serves the community. He donates. He just opened an institute in Brazil for kids on the neighborhood, on the hood. So that's what I want to do. Like I want to keep coaching my guys, helping my guys, but at the same time, I got to serve the community.
So I think it's beautiful that you're instilling these values in your students. A lot of teachers talk about they teach, but during their time teaching, they learn things from their students. What's the biggest takeaway you've learned from your students?
It's hard to put one takeaway because every day is a new lesson that I learn with them, bro. Like, it's crazy.
What's the most recent one, if you will? Maybe like a life lesson or something that you learned through your experience coaching and you learned as a function of being a coach.
Brother, what I learned through my experience as a coach is for you to stay humble, stay simple, nothing fancy. As I coach my guys too, even from the aspects of martial arts, aspects in life, just stay with the basics, stay humble. A lot of kids over there, they come from different backgrounds, different life perspectives, some more wealthy, some less. So to stay on the level and just be nice with everybody.
And when you work with some of these world-class athletes, you see sometimes there's instances where the money gets to their head, the fame gets to their head, and they lose focus. For your athletes, especially Alex, he still performs at the highest level, right? How much of that do you think is just innate and some people have the ability to stay focused on what really matters?
I think part of who he is also is the environment, is the team that we create, the bond that we create. We are very peak on our energy, we're very peak on if somebody's like needing an attitude adjustment, we go and talk to them. So I think the ability of Alex to reach this high level, like I say, is the work ethic, but it's also he's able to stay rooted on who he is and where he comes from.
So I'm going to make a little bit of a shift into something more fun. So you've had your time in MMA and as a coach, but now you've been doing some more stuff with MMA shows and short films. You were in a short film, I think 4 years ago it was. What is it like acting for you? How much do you enjoy acting?
Oh, it's fun. Like I had a few pop-ups here and there, you know what I mean? But I think everything is part of the business, you know what I mean? Everything's fun.
Was it ever scary for you? Because they say that the number one fear in the world, even before death, is public speaking.
Yeah, but when you're fighting, you're already used to kind of that because you're the open platform, because fighting never lies. Fighting exposes who you are to the deepest. So once you be doing that for a while, it's natural.
So it just became pretty easy for you. I would also imagine with all the press conferences and interviews that you have to sit through.
100%.
Like, either as a coach or when you were a fighter, you know, you're at the highest level of everything.
100%.
So
everything's performed, you know.
Of course. So since we're talking about movies, is there anything that you can share about a new project you and your team have been working on?
Well, now our team, I know Alex, I think I cannot talk too much about it, but I think I saw in the news, I think he's doing a new movie now. It's going to be his first role. It's an A24 movie, I think it's called Onslaught. And they're on production right now. I don't know the details, but I think he's going to have something really cool coming up soon.
I'm really excited to hear that. So outside of fighting and coaching, what takes up most of your time?
Bro, fighting and coaching is my life.
Is that all your time?
But I like to stay home sometimes because I travel so much, right? I like to just hang out with my friends, hang out with Alex. We are very low-key people. Grill, barbecues, just hang out. Because
so it's just almost like a family vibe.
100% a family vibe.
So if you weren't doing MMA and you never got into MMA, what do you think you would have done with your life?
I cannot see myself not doing what I do because I think everybody have a gift or have a role in this world. My role is to come here and be a coach.
Do you think that if it wasn't MMA, you would be coaching or teaching something?
Probably, but it's even hard to picture because I came from such a different world in Brazil and I shift to everything that I did here. Over there was hard with perspective, hard to try anything that you want, you know what I mean? So when I came to my friend and I said, look, I'm going to move to the States, I'm going to keep fighting over there. What the same as if I came to you and say, bro, I'm going to go to the moon tomorrow. We're going to be like, what? So I like what I do.
So you like what you do. Do you have any crazy stories about a fight or something that went wrong in a gym or maybe in the lead up to a fight or anything that you'd like to share?
have so many, bro. It's hard to name one. Hard to find, bro.
Hard to find one?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to go into the next segment of the show where I like to ask really quick, rapid fire questions. So I'm going to bring them on. Favorite submission?
Armbar.
Favorite fight of all time? Yours or someone else's?
Favorite fight of all time? What I was watching yesterday actually was really good. I will put Adesanya Pereira, number 3, the first one in the UFC. Because he was losing 4 rounds, came there and had to
come
take it
back.
out. Yes.
Round 5.
Like everybody likes a comeback.
Striking or grappling, what do you prefer to watch? Because you have a big background in the grappling department.
Yes, I watch more striking. My relationship with jiu-jitsu, I say that is a marriage. The love is there, but the passion comes and goes. So the love of my life is still grappling, but striking is what I do the best. I think so now.
Best Brazilian steak cut?
Picanha.
That's what I want to hear. That's the right answer. I love to hear that. So what's one word to describe Alex Pereira?
Inspiring.
Dream vacation spot that you could also do a fight camp in?
Italy.
Why Italy?
It's nice, warm, and I'm half Italian, so I like the food.
There you go. If you could corner any fighter from history, who would it be?
Mike Tyson.
Really? You're a big boxing fan?
Big boxing fan. I have a big boxing background, so I've been training box for like 20 years.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much today, Plinio, for coming onto the show. Your story is incredible, from fighting to titles to now coaching for also titles. You have an amazing story. We're so happy. We're grateful that you're on the show today. If you guys like this episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe and catch us in the next one. Thank you so much, brother.
Shama.
Jama.